Let's look at this one now. So this one's just a little bit different than the ones that we were working on before. So if we look back at these ones, whenever we did it, we had a whole number or integer multiplied by our x. So if we're looking at this one, that 1/2 is a rational number. I'm saying 1 divided by 2 times x. Since I have a division problem right there, when I'm selecting my x's, I'm going to want to think of multiples of 2, because let's think of it. If I plugged in 1 for my x, 1 times 1/2 leaves me with 1/2. I don't want to deal with decimals. They're not fun to mess with. So we're going to choose multiples of 2, because if I plugged in a 2 for my x, it's going to be 2 times 1/2, which is 1. So that's going to be a lot easier to deal with. So let's go ahead and pick some x's together, and then I will let you try to solve this problem on your own. So again, we want one negative number, we want a 0, and then we want a positive number. So for my first negative number, I'm going to pick a 2, because 2 is a multiple of 2. For my positive number, I'm going to also pick 2. So I've got -2, 0, 2. The next multiple of 2 is going to be a 4. And so those are the 4 ones I picked. You could have picked anything you want. If you wanted to pick a -10, go for it. If you wanted to pick a -1, nothing's stopping you. It's just a little bit harder to work with, because every single x you pick should have a y solution to go with it. So pause the video now, try out this problem, and then check your answer in a couple of seconds. And this is what your graph should have looked like. So when we filled out our y's or our outputs, we should have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I graphed it over here. So those are the 4 points that go with those 4 points over there, and then drawing a line to connect it all together. I'm going to throw one more concept at you. So for this equation, we have x equals -2. I don't see a y in that equation. That's going to be a little bit of a problem for us. So let's go ahead and type out or write out some x's. So since my equation says x equals -2, all I can write is -2 in for my x's. So I'm going to write that the whole way down. So every single x that I have has to be a -2, because that's what the equation tells me. Now let's look at my y's. Oh, that didn't work out how I wanted it to. Give me a second to fix this. There we go. So every single x that I have is a -2. For my y's, I could choose anything I want. I could choose -27. I could choose -5. I could choose -3. I could choose 0. I could choose 1. The list goes on and on. But the important thing is my x is always a -2. So on my x, I'm going to go to -2. So that's going to be one of my points right there. Now I have to think about where x always equals -2. So if I go to y equals 5, x has to be -2. If I go to y equals -4, I have to go to x equals -2. And so you can see that a straight vertical line is forming. And so that's going to be our solution. X always is going to equal -2. Now let's think about that from the y side. If I gave you, oh, sorry. So vertical lines align parallel to the y-axis because x's value never changes. So if we're looking at this again, that x value never changes, so it's always going to be parallel to our y-axis. So x equals -2 in this case. Now let's go look at our y's. So if I gave you the equation y equals 4, that means for every single one, I have to choose y equals 4. And I can choose whatever I want for my x. So I can pick -25, I could pick -3, I could pick 0, I could pick 4, I could pick 210. It doesn't matter what I pick for x because my y is always going to be 4. So again, let's think about where y is 4. Y is that vertical line there, so I'm going to where y is 4. And I have to think of where y is always going to be 4. So if x equals 5, y equals 4. If x equals -3, y equals 4. So you can see that it is starting to form that horizontal line at where y equals 4. So to put that in different terms, we're looking at that horizontal line. That line is going to be parallel to the x-axis this time because that y value is never changing. And that's all I have for you today. So your homework is going to be on page 146. You're doing problems 5 through 10, which are going to be problems like we did today. Number 17 is going to be an error analysis. So somebody tried the problem and they did it wrong, and you need to figure out what they did wrong and correct it. If you have any questions, shoot me an email.